This is Healthways' 30th year anniversary. They started up in 1991, so it was their 30th anniversary last year. I think they were essentially set up under legislation that took money from the tobacco tax. There was a group of health professionals and academics and public health personnel at the time who were very, very disturbed at the level of tobacco sponsorship in sport. Some of you will be old enough to remember the Wacko and the Benson Hedges. Yeah. So they were massive sponsorships, and they actually funded a lot of the sporting codes. So that was very disturbing for this group. So they set up Healthway with governments, it's a government agency, and they used this money, this tobacco tax, to replace that funding. So they said to WACA, how much has Benson Hedges given you? Might have been 300,000 for 3 years. Unfortunately, they were multi-year contracts. So Healthway said, well, we'll buy them out. We want you to ditch Benson and Hedges, and we will give you the exact value, and we want you to promote quit. Genius. So it was a really important moment in the public health climate of the time. And it wasn't just WACA, it was a lot of the sports had this tobacco sponsorship. You probably don't appreciate that back then you could smoke in all the pubs and clubs, and you could smoke everywhere. You could smoke in planes. So part of what Healthway did, they fulfilled these 3 and 5 year deals. I think most of them were 3. But then it continued after that to provide funding to sport and arts and racing as a vehicle to target people to adopt healthier lifestyles. So one of my first projects was the Fly By Night Club in Fremantle. That was one of the first pubs that went smoke-free. So it was a big deal at the time. It's now called Freo Social. And now we just take for granted that a lot of the drinking establishments are smoke-free. Another one was Trots and the Dogs. We had a big sponsorship with them. And most people who go to the Trots and Dogs there's a lot of people that had some compromising health behaviours. So they often smoked and drank too much. So they were a prime target group for our sort of sponsorship, because you've got them there, they're a captured audience. So we had a Be Active Everyday message, wanting them to be more active. But what we were really wanting to buy was to make those venues smoke-free over a period of time. So we did all hard work, and then the legislation came in and made them all smoke-free anyway. But it was really important to try and shift people along that behaviour change from awareness to being educated about the dangers of smoking, and then perhaps considering changing their behaviour. So a bit of a history lesson there. So the Purpose of Healthway, it's a Western Australian Health Promotion Foundation. So it's owned by the WA, it's a government agency, and it's responsible for supporting health promotion. It promotes and facilitates good health and activities that encourage healthy lifestyles for Western Australians. It has some very specific target groups: children and young people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, cold communities, people living in rural, remote, and people disadvantaged through economic, physical, cultural, social or educational factors. So it's really quite tight on those target groups. If you're an organisation working with those people, then you've got a much better chance of getting Healthway funding. Next slide, please. So this is called their strategic plan, which is, it's not everything. When you put strategic in front of it, people turn off. But what I want to point out is that their priority areas across the top. So they are increasing healthy eating, increasing physical activity, improving mental health, preventing harm from alcohol, and creating a smoke-free WA. Now, Healthway does fund sports, arts, racing, community organisations, but you've got to remember that it is a health promotion foundation. So they are using these as a vehicle to get what they want, what we want, which is a healthier WA, which is fair enough. But I think some people, because they see the word they fund sport, think that they're just going to fund sport for sport's sake. We all think sport's fantastic, but we're not going to just give you some money because you're a sport. Does that make sense? We want you to do all these things for us, but ultimately they're for the benefit of your community and the people that play your sport. Okay, so if we just look at a couple of those, which is probably the most important ones for Healthway, are increasing healthy eating and improving mental health and preventing harm from alcohol. Now, the increasing healthy eating, the outcomes or the actions they want is to reduce children's exposure to marketing of unhealthy food, increase access to healthy food, encourage healthy eating, and improve public awareness of healthy eating choices. Now, Healthway work through what we call health messages. So if we look at increasing healthy eating, if you work with Healthway, you will get, and you pick that as your nominated area, which I'll get to in a minute, some of the messages that you will see, and you might see these around, go for 2 and 5, crunch and sip, live lighter, and fuel to play and go. It's actually fuel to go and play, actually. Okay, in the alcohol area, you've got think, what is the message?
Alcohol, think again.
That's it, alcohol, think again. In mental health, we've got think mental health and act, belong, commit. So they are messages that belong to health agencies, but they're also associated with a priority area for Healthway. Next slide, please. So their funding is across these areas, and we're going to concentrate on 2 of those which are more relevant to you guys. Healthy partnerships and healthy spaces. So healthy partnerships, you can be a sport and racing organisation. Now with racing, it is car racing, motor racing, not horse racing. Used to be horse racing, no horses anymore. Arts and community events. And in healthy spaces, it's healthy venues and healthy sporting clubs. The healthy communities, that's more for health organisations that are applying for funding for a health project that can change the attitudes and knowledge and behaviours of a group of people, and it has a very good chance of influencing policy and practice. So I'm not sure if there's any health organisations here, but that's more your space, the healthy communities. So if we look at healthy partnerships, next slide please. There's 2 types of funding, up to 5,000 and over 5,000. One's a minimum 4 months, one's 5 months. Up to 5,000, they fund sport, art, racing and community groups to create healthy environments. So this is one of the fundamental things that Healthway want to do. So if you get Healthway funding, your environment has to be healthy. That means that you have to offer healthy food, there's non-display of sugary drinks, they're smoke-free, there's no alcohol sold, and you've got shade. I think that pretty much covers it. So you have to be prepared to implement these minimum health standards is what they call, and you also have to, as an organisation, implement a health policy. That sounds scary, they have templates available. Healthway is very, very passionate about making every organisation a healthier organisation. Health is too important just for health organisations. Health is important for sport, arts, racing. Every organisation has to take health on board. That's the Healthway philosophy. I've just got some examples of some of these under 5,000. Sorry. Because I think examples is a way for people to understand what we mean. So for one, the Waroona Bowling and Social Club, they asked for a project to involve members of their community that actually weren't playing bowls and were inactive or weren't belonging to a club to come along and do a series of tryout lawn bowls. So they got $2,000 to help them with this grant, and what Healthway got in return was promotion of the Live Lighter health message, improve public awareness of healthy eating choices. So at the bowling club they had healthy eating choices, and they would package up a meal deal, so you could have a steak and salad and a water bottle of water for $10, which was cheaper. So the other thing they would do is take all the really unhealthy options off, even though, you know, we don't want to, people need to be able to choose, but they would take some of the unhealthy options off. They would also, so they would promote a health message, make the environment healthier. I guess probably to point this out in a more sort of another example, years ago we weren't so sun smart, and so if you were looking at putting your kid in a sport and you were they were a fair-skinned child, you know, subject to getting burnt all the time, you would look for a sporting club that was promoting a sun smart message. They had a policy about sun smart. They adopted their uniforms so that the uniforms were long sleeve. They had hats. If ever they got into a group, they would move them to the shade. They would schedule their sport out of the hottest part of the day. So can you see that what they're promoting and what they're displaying as behaviours of that health club actually fit in together? They're promoting a good message, they're educating the kids about sun smart, and they're changing behaviour to actually complete that circle. Does that make sense? Okay. Over 5,000, you actually have to do a health promotion plan. So you have to actually, there's lots of information on their website how to do this. So it sounds scary, but if you wanting money, and this is sort of the domain of a lot of the big sports like Perth Glory, Perth Fever. They've got the Live Lighter message. West Australian Football Commission, the Country Football Commission has Think Mental Health. They have to put in plans of what sort of strategies they're going to use, whether it's a promotional strategy, educational strategy, or environmental strategy. How are they going to make their sport and their club healthier through their sport? Healthy spaces. So the first one, healthy venues, is more for local government. If there's a canteen or a sporting facility run by the government, then Healthway is going to give them money to improve their health choices and promote healthy eating. The second one's more relevant for small sporting clubs. You can get up to $4,000 to make your canteen healthier. Most people use it for soup warmers or display cabinets or juicing machines. And the idea is you reduce your level of unhealthy food, increase your level of healthy food. Make sense? Next slide, I think that's probably it.
Primary fund, healthcare funding, you know, clinics.
Yeah.
We used to manage
Medicare local.
Yeah, okay,
It's
good.
the same organisation.
Okay, so that's sort of inclusive,
Yeah.
targeting people that